Video, I'm going to explain the DNS basics from the Gaia link that has been provided for the final. And I feel like a lot of people are going to struggle with this, which is why I'm going to do this. So, we're going to start off with, so now we've gotten the following records in two DNS servers, right? We have, and in this record, the way it's structured is that this is a name, this is the value, and then this is its unique identifier, right? Or in this case, we'll get into the following question called RR, right? So it's name, value, RR. And there are two batches of data. There is one in the TLD DNS server, and then there is 4 pieces of data in the authoritative DNS server. So we're just going to quickly go over what is inside this, what is the content of the server. So in the TLD DNS, there is www.enterprise.com and dns.enterprise.com, with the RR being NS. dns.enterprise.com and 146.154.103.174. Meaning this is the name, this is the value, and this is the RR. And now in the authoritative DNS server, right? And the reason why it says enterprise.com DNS server is because that is for this right here. So now okay, sorry. In here there is www.enterprise.com, east2.enterprise.com, cname as the RR. Then there is east2.enterprise.com, 142.81.17.206, A, which is the RR, enterprise.com, mail.enterprise.com, and then MX, which of course is the RR. So name, value, RR, mail.enterprise.com, 247.29.250.90, A as the RR. Now, what transport protocol does DNS use? The DNS generally uses UDP, but in some cases, such as zone transfer, i.e. this example here, it will use both. What well-known port does DNS use? DNS uses port 53. In the example above, how many unique type of RR records are there at the authoritative enterprise.com DNS server? So the authoritative enterprise DNS server is this, right? Enterprise.com, enterprise.com. And there's a clear distinction with www.enterprise.com and enterprise.com. Enterprise.com is what the question is asking. www.enterprise.com is the website that is stored on the DNS server. So, how many unique type of resource records are there at the authoritative enterprise.com DNS server, which is this, right? And there are 3 records. Why 3? There are 4 unique records, right? There is A, NS, CNAME, and MX, right? Now, as for what the definitions are, I do not know. All I know is that there are 4 types of resource records. And how many are there in the enterprise DNS server? There are 3 unique, right? Now, the reason why it's 3 is because A is duplicated twice. And since A is duplicated twice, there's 3 unique resource records: CNAME, A, and MX. So it's 3. Can you send multiple DNS questions and get multiple RR answers in one message? Answer was yes or no. The answer is yes, right? There can be multiple questions and answers in one single DNS question. To which DNS server does the host send the requests to? So this is the host, this PC right here, as it says here, requesting host, right? it is going to the local DNS server because that's the only one where the host is connected to, not authoritative, not TLD, or not the root. It's only connected to the local DNS server. What type of DNS server holds the company's DNS records? It is the authoritative DNS server. Why? Because if you look here, right, in the enterprise.com server, which is the authoritative DNS server, it has their main website, their East Enterprise website with an IP address for the location, then the name of the enterprise for its and its mailing address for where the mail goes, and then the server for where the mail where the mail DNS server is located, right? So that is important. Thus, it is the authoritative DNS server. In the example given in the problem, what is the name of the DNS server for enterprise.com? Right? It is, because look, it says here, what is the DNS server? Which means it's simply just dns.enterprise.com. Because this is the DNS server for, it is the DNS server for this. And it's hosted here. So it's dns.enterprise.com. And also because if we look here, right, the www.enterprise.com is also mentioned here, right, which has a dns.enterprise.com in the NS resource record, right? So that's why it is the dns.enterprise.com, because if you look here, it's mentioned, it's mentioned here, which means it will go back to here, right? And in here, the name this is the name, and then this is the value for the name. When you make the request for www.enterprise.com, your local DNS requests the IP on your behalf. When it contacts the TLD server, how many resource records are returned? The main thing to look for is when it contacts the TLD server, right? Which is this. If you look up here, there are assume the following records on the TLD DNS server, and there are two records, this and this. So the answer is 2. In the previous question, there were two responses. One was an NS record and the other an A record. What is the content of A record? Now this is going to be confusing because there are 2 A records, right? But sorry, 3 A records, right? But it says here one was an NS one was a NS record and the other was an A record, right? Which means we are still in the TLD server. It says what is the content of A record? Answer with the format name value. So look, we have the name, value, and the RR record. So it wants this. So it wants these, right? So I just copy and paste it here. Assume the enterprise website is actually hosted on the east2.enterprise.com. What kind of record is needed for this? So assume that the enterprise.com website, so here, is hosted on here, right? What type of record is needed for this? And it is the CNAME. Because you see here, this is the value. Excuse me 1 second. So yeah, back to where I was. You see here, there's these two enterprises mentioned twice. But the value here is where it's hosted, right? So the name enterprise is hosted on this IP address here. But if we go back to the record above, the website is hosted on this IP address sorry, on this website, which is then going here, and it gives the IP address. So it'll sort of overlap, right? So the type of record that it wants is CNAME. Now, imagine we are trying to send an email to admin@enterprise.com, and the mail server has the name mail.enterprise.com. What type of record will contain the name of the enterprise.com domain and the name of its mail server? That would be, MX. Simply because Mail Enterprise, Mail Enterprise mentioned twice, right? Mail Enterprise is just the website. It's hosted by this IP address. And so if you go to the record above, enterprise.com, and then it's hosting the Mail Enterprise address, right? So the name is the resource record we're looking for is MX, right? Because when it's saying it's looking for the mail.enterprise.com, it wants it at its value, not as its name, right? So if I wrote A here, right, because it's mentioned here, right, the answer is going to be wrong. See? Now, if I were to write MX, it's going to be correct because it is the value they want, not the name. I do MX and yep, that's correct. And in that MX record, what are the contents, right? So basically, what's in this line, right? Just remove the MX, just copy and paste. The mosquito. Now, does your local DNS server take advantage of caching similar to web requests? It is yes. The answer is yes. Why? Because cache is temporary storage that is being saved on a volatile storage, right? And the reason why it stores cache is because it will make it easier and faster to retrieve the data. Because you've accessed the data once, it's going to think, maybe this person's going to take it again. I'll just keep it here in this separate area so I can just give it to them right like that, really quickly. And done. And keep in mind, every time you do try another problem, it will give the same exact one. So if I try another problem, the same IP address, same everything.